The air seemed to thicken as Thomas Markle slowly raised his trembling hands, holding what appeared to be a stack of faded photographs and yellowed documents. The cameras clicked frantically, the flashes illuminating the deep creases on his weary face. For years, he had been silent, reduced to tabloid caricatures of a bitter, estranged father. But this time, his voice didn't shake because of age or nervousness. It quivered with something else: rage, pain, and an unsettling determination. "They need to know the truth," he said softly, but the room went silent as though a bomb had detonated. "Meghan has hidden too much for too long. And this will finally set the record straight." Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. This wasn't the first time Meghan Markle's family drama had spilled into public view. Since her marriage to Prince Harry, the world had witnessed endless cycles of accusations, denials, and public meltdowns involving her father and half-siblings. But this time felt different. The stakes were higher, the claims darker, and the potential fallout catastrophic. If what Thomas Markle held in his hands was even remotely true, it wouldn't just rewrite Meghan's carefully constructed public image as a devoted mother. It could tear apart the very foundation of the Sussex family. At the heart of Thomas's accusations was a chilling claim that long before Meghan dazzled the world as an actress, humanitarian, and royal bride, she had lived a secret life. A life that allegedly included a pregnancy in her early 20s. A life that, if exposed, would raise troubling questions about her journey into motherhood and cast a long shadow over Archie and Lilibet Diana, the two young children she now shields fiercely from the public eye. And now, it wasn't just Thomas Markle speaking out. To the shock of many, Doria Ragland, Meghan's usually silent and stoic mother, had reportedly broken her silence too. She too hinted at knowing pieces of a puzzle Meghan never wanted completed. Together, the estranged parents painted a haunting portrait of secrets, sacrifices, and a woman willing to do anything to bury her past. But why now? What had driven Meghan's parents to join forces in exposing a daughter they once claimed to love unconditionally? Was this the desperate act of bitter relatives hungry for relevance? Or was there more lurking beneath the surface? Could there really be an older sibling somewhere, a child Meghan abandoned or hid, whose existence threatened to unravel her entire narrative? And if so, what would happen if that child decided to step forward? As whispers turned to shouts across social media, public opinion fractured violently. Some called Thomas and Doria's claims cruel lies, the latest in a long line of attacks against a woman who had survived racism, media bullying, and royal indifference. Others, however, leaned forward with morbid curiosity, recalling Meghan's famously guarded nature about her private life. They pored over every photo, every timeline, and every odd gap in her biography, searching for signs of a hidden chapter. Through it all, Meghan remained silent, at least publicly. Sources close to the Duchess painted a picture of fury and desperation behind palace walls. One insider described her pacing the floors of her Montecito mansion, clutching her phone tightly as she barked instructions to her legal team. "She feels betrayed in the worst way imaginable," the source confided. "She's terrified that the public will believe this, and that Harry will start asking questions she doesn't want to answer." For Harry, this scandal reportedly cut deep. He had built his entire post-royal life on the image of family, escaping the firm's toxic environment to protect his wife and children from the very pain he endured as a boy. But now, faced with allegations that Meghan had not been fully honest about her past, his own world seemed to wobble. Was the woman he had sacrificed everything for hiding something monumental? Was Archie and Lilibet's idyllic existence in Montecito built on secrets so explosive they could destroy everything? And then there was the child. If Thomas and Doria were to be believed, this hidden son or daughter would now be a teenager or young adult. Were they living quietly somewhere, unaware of their royal connection? Or had they grown up knowing everything, watching from the shadows as their mother's life became a global spectacle? Worse still, what if they weren't content to remain hidden? What if they were ready to speak out, to claim their place in the world Meghan had fought so hard to control? These were the questions that electrified headlines and social feeds around the world. The whispers grew louder, merging into a single chilling thought. If Meghan Markle could hide something this big, what else was she capable of hiding? But beneath all the noise, one truth stood out. Whether the allegations were fact or fabrication, their impact was already devastating. A daughter's relationship with her parents lay in ruins. A husband's faith in his wife hung by a thread. And two innocent children, Archie and Lilibet, became unwilling pawns in a scandal that threatened to consume them all. This is the story of how Meghan Markle's darkest secret was dragged into the light, how her own parents turned into her accusers, and how the revelations The scene was deceptively calm in Montecito that morning. Sunlight streamed through the sprawling windows of the Sussex mansion, dancing across carefully curated interiors that seemed designed for serenity. The scent of fresh flowers wafted through the hallways, and from a distance, one could almost hear the laughter of two young children. Meghan had spent years crafting this sanctuary, a place where she, Harry, Archie, and Lilibet could live free from the relentless scrutiny of the world. Yet within those walls, peace was an illusion. Beneath her composed exterior, Meghan felt the storm brewing. And this time, it wasn't a tabloid headline she could brush aside or a royal aide she could outmaneuver. This time, the danger came from her own flesh and blood. It had begun with a phone call she hadn't wanted to take. Her assistant's voice was urgent, almost trembling. "It's your father. He's saying he has evidence. He's going public." Meghan felt her heart stop. For years, she had anticipated this moment, dreading it like the sound of approaching footsteps in a nightmare. Her father had threatened before, but he had never carried through to this extent. This time felt different. And as she listened to the words that followed, her stomach twisted in knots. "Thomas says he has photos and documents from years ago. He's claiming you had a child in your 20s and hid it from the world." The words hung heavy in the air, each syllable cutting through Meghan like a knife. She wanted to scream, to hurl her phone across the room, to deny it all. But for a moment, just a moment, she froze. She thought back to those years, a time she had buried so deep it felt almost like another lifetime. She remembered the small apartment in Los Angeles, the relentless auditions, the suffocating weight of her ambitions, and the fear that her dreams would slip away before they even began. She remembered long nights of crying, of questioning her choices, of wishing she could rewind time. And she remembered him, the man who had swept into her life unexpectedly, who had promised her love and stability, only to disappear when she needed him most. That chapter of her life was supposed to be sealed forever, locked away in the vault of her memory. But now, it threatened to spill open for the entire world to see. The story wasn't just about Meghan anymore. It was about Archie and Lilibet, the children she had sworn to protect at all costs. It was about Harry, who had left his family, his country, and his legacy to stand by her side. If Thomas's claims gained traction, everything she had built could crumble in an instant. The media would feast on her like vultures, dissecting every decision, every timeline, every word she had ever spoken about motherhood. And worst of all, Harry might look at her with questions in his eyes, questions she wasn't sure she could answer without shattering his trust. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away, Thomas Markle prepared for his own moment in the spotlight. Gone was the timid, apologetic figure who had once begged Meghan to forgive him. This Thomas was hardened, embittered by years of estrangement and public humiliation. He sat in his modest home in Rosarito, Mexico, carefully arranging the photographs on his kitchen table. They were old, some faded and curling at the edges, but to him, they were weapons he believed could finally force the truth out of his daughter. "I didn't want it to come to this," Thomas muttered to himself as he rehearsed his statements. "But she's left me no choice. The world deserves to know who Meghan really is. They deserve to know about the child she abandoned." His voice was tinged with a strange mix of sorrow and vindication. He had once adored Meghan, had doted on her as a little girl, proud of her every accomplishment. But the Meghan he remembered had disappeared, replaced by a woman he barely recognized, a woman who, in his eyes, had turned her back on family, on honesty, on her roots. And then there was Doria Ragland. For years, she had remained the picture of quiet dignity, never giving interviews, never feeding the media circus that followed her daughter. But recently, whispers began to circulate that Doria was no longer willing to stay silent. Sources close to her claimed she had met with Thomas in secret, that she, too, had old memories and documents that could corroborate his story. What had changed? Had Doria grown tired of Meghan's efforts to control the narrative? Or was she trying to protect her grandchildren from a web of lies that could eventually ensnare them? As news of Thomas and Doria's alleged collaboration spread, the public reaction was electric. On social media, hashtags like #MeghanSecretChild and #ArchieandLilibet trended worldwide. Some users dismissed the claims outright, calling them cruel fabrications from a bitter father. Others pored over Meghan's old interviews, searching for inconsistencies, for anything that might suggest a hidden chapter in her life. A few even began to question the origins of Archie and Lilibet themselves, resurrecting conspiracy theories about surrogacy and hidden hospital records. For Harry, the scandal was a waking nightmare. He had spent years shielding Meghan from attacks, standing defiantly by her side as she battled the British tabloids, the royal establishment, and the court of public opinion. But now, the attacks weren't coming from strangers or institutions. They were coming from Meghan's own family. And as much as he wanted to believe in his wife, to trust her completely, he couldn't ignore the creeping doubt in the back of his mind. Why had Meghan been so secretive about her early 20s? Why had she cut off so many people from her past? And if there really was a child out there, what did that mean for Archie and Lilibet? The questions were relentless, gnawing at him in the quiet hours of the night. He would stare at Meghan across the dinner table, searching her face for answers she wasn't giving. And in those moments, he felt an unfamiliar sense of isolation, a chasm opening between them that no amount of love or loyalty could bridge. But Meghan wasn't about to go down without a fight. As the days passed, she summoned her lawyers, her PR team, and her closest allies. Every detail of Thomas and Doria's claims was analyzed, dissected, and prepared for counterattack. Meghan knew the stakes. This wasn't just about her reputation. It was about her children's future, about ensuring that Archie and Lilibet would never grow up in the shadow of their mother's supposed mistakes. "I won't let them destroy us," she whispered to herself one night, holding Lilibet close as the little girl slept peacefully in her arms. "They can say what they want, but they will never take my family from me." Yet even as she spoke the words, a sliver of fear lodged itself in her heart. Because deep down, Meghan knew that secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how hard you try to bury them. And if this secret, the one she had fought so hard to forget, truly came to light, it wouldn't just be her world that crumbled. It would be Harry's. It would be Archie's. It would be Lilibet's. And somewhere out there, if Thomas and Doria were to be believed, was another child. A child who might be watching, waiting for the moment to step out of the shadows and claim their place in Meghan's carefully guarded kingdom. The morning air was heavy with anticipation as Thomas Markle sat in the modest living room of his Rosarito home. He stared at the wrinkled papers spread out before him, each one holding a fragment of a story he had kept buried for years. The man who had once walked his daughter down the aisle in his dreams now found himself preparing to dismantle the very pedestal she had built for herself. He lit a cigarette, the faint glow of the ember illuminating his lined face. Outside, waves crashed against the cliffs, but inside, there was only silence. The kind that comes before a storm. It wasn't easy for Thomas to decide to speak out. For years, he had been painted as the villain in Meghan's story, the absent father, the sellout, the man who betrayed his daughter for a paycheck. But in his mind, he wasn't doing this out of malice. He told himself this was about truth, about justice, about holding Meghan accountable for the choices she had made before she became a duchess. When the call came from the media outlet that agreed to air his statement, Thomas felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He hadn't spoken to Meghan in years. She had cut him off after the wedding, after the tabloid debacle, after the letters and the leaked conversations. But he still remembered the little girl who used to climb onto his lap, her big brown eyes staring up at him with unfiltered love. Somewhere deep down, he still loved her. But he couldn't let that stop him. Not anymore. The journalists arrived late in the afternoon. Their cameras were sleek and professional, their voices polite but urgent. They knew the gravity of what Thomas was about to say. As they set up the lights and microphones, Thomas shifted uncomfortably in his chair. He glanced once more at the photographs beside him, one of Meghan as a fresh-faced young woman in her early 20s, her smile strained but radiant, another, more mysterious, showing her in a hospital gown, her hand resting on her stomach. And then there were the papers, hospital records, birth certificates, and letters that hinted at a life Meghan had carefully erased. As the cameras rolled, Thomas cleared his throat. "This isn't easy for me," he began, his voice low and gravelly. "But I can't stay silent anymore. Meghan has built her life on lies, and the world deserves to know the truth." He held up a photograph, its edges frayed from years of handling. "This is Meghan. She was young, ambitious, and she made mistakes. One of those mistakes was a pregnancy she never wanted the world to know about." The room seemed to shrink as the words left his mouth. The journalists leaned forward, their pens scratching furiously against notepads. The cameraman zoomed in on the image, capturing every detail. Meghan's face, pale and tired, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, her hands folded protectively over her belly. Thomas continued, his voice steady despite the emotions swirling in his eyes. She was in her early 20s. She wasn't ready to be a mother. She made a choice to give up that child or hide them away. I don't know where that child is today, but I know they exist. And I know Meghan has spent her whole life trying to make sure no one ever finds out. The journalists pressed him for more details. Who was the father? What happened to the baby? Did Meghan's mother, Doria, know? Thomas hesitated, his fingers drumming against the armrest. I don't have all the answers, he admitted. But I know Doria was there. She knows the truth, too. We both watched as Meghan struggled with the weight of her decisions. We both kept her secret because we thought it was the right thing to do. But now I can't stay quiet. Not when I see her pretending to be the perfect mother to Archie and Lilibet, knowing what she's hiding. Across the ocean, Meghan's world was already beginning to shake. News outlets had picked up Thomas's claims within minutes, their headlines screaming accusations that sent shockwaves through social media. Meghan's legal team worked frantically to contain the damage, issuing statements that called Thomas's claims outrageous fabrications from a disgruntled relative. But behind closed doors, Meghan's fury boiled over. Why is he doing this? She demanded, her voice rising as she paced the living room. Why now? What does he want from me? Harry watched her helplessly, his hands balled into fists. He wanted to comfort her, to tell her they would get through this together. But a tiny seed of doubt had already taken root in his mind, growing quietly with every passing hour. As Meghan barked orders to her advisors, another voice entered the fray. Doria Ragland, usually silent and stoic, released her own cryptic statement to the press. It wasn't a denial. In fact, it wasn't clear what it was. There are things only a mother and daughter can understand, she said softly to a reporter outside her Los Angeles home. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried, no matter how hard you try. The words were like gasoline on an open flame. Speculation exploded online. Was Doria confirming Thomas's claims? Or was she simply offering a vague platitude? For Thomas, the reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Some hailed him as a hero for standing up to his daughter's alleged hypocrisy. Others vilified him as a bitter old man exploiting his own family for attention. But Thomas didn't care. In his mind, he had done what needed to be done. Meghan's secret was out now, and there was no turning back. What no one knew, not Thomas, not Meghan, not even Harry, was that somewhere out there, a young adult was scrolling through the headlines with wide eyes and a pounding heart. They had always felt a strange emptiness, a nagging sense that something about their life didn't add up. And now, staring at Meghan's face on the screen, they whispered quietly to themselves, "Is she my mother?" If the world thought the scandal had reached its peak, they were wrong. This was only the beginning. The quiet hum of the Los Angeles streets outside Doria Ragland's home was a sharp contrast to the chaos erupting across the media. Paparazzi vans lined her block, their lenses trained on the small, unassuming house she had retreated to after leaving Meghan's Montecito estate weeks earlier. For years, Doria had been Meghan's rock, the calm and dignified figure who refused to engage with the media circus that surrounded her daughter. She had played her part flawlessly, the supportive mother, the wise grandmother, the moral anchor in Meghan's narrative. But now, for reasons even she couldn't fully explain, Doria was breaking her silence. Inside the house, Doria sat at her kitchen table, her fingers curled tightly around a mug of herbal tea that had long gone cold. On the table before her lay an envelope, thick with old photographs and folded documents that felt heavier than lead. They were relics of a past she had spent 2 decades trying to forget, a past she had promised Meghan would never see the light of day. But promises had a way of unraveling, especially when the truth pressed against the walls of memory like an unstoppable tide. She remembered the day Meghan came to her, her eyes wild with fear, her voice shaking as she confessed, "I can't do this, Mom. I can't be a mother right now." Doria had felt her heart break for her daughter. Meghan was young, ambitious, and desperate to make her mark on the world. The pregnancy had been unplanned, a mistake Meghan insisted would destroy her dreams if it ever became public. Doria had stood by her side then, holding her hand in the hospital room as Meghan wept silently, her body trembling with the enormity of her choice. She had watched as the nurses took the baby away, her daughter's face a mask of pain and determination. They never spoke of that day again. But now Thomas had forced her hand. His decision to reveal the secret they had both guarded for so long had ignited a firestorm, and Doria knew she couldn't stay silent forever. Reporters had begun circling like vultures, demanding answers. Friends and acquaintances were calling, their voices tinged with curiosity and disbelief. Even Meghan's team had reached out, pleading with Doria to release a statement denying Thomas's claims. But Doria couldn't bring herself to lie anymore. Not after everything. When the journalist arrived for the interview, Doria felt a strange calm settle over her. She had rehearsed what she wanted to say 1,000 times in her head, but the words still felt foreign on her tongue. "There are things only a mother and daughter can understand," she began, her voice soft but steady. "Things that happen in private moments, when the world isn't watching." Meghan was young. She made choices I supported because I thought it was what she needed. The journalist leaned forward, her pen poised. "Are you confirming Thomas Markle's claims, Ms. Ragland? Are you saying Meghan had a child before Archie and Lilibet?" Doria hesitated, her eyes flickering with a storm of emotions. "I'm saying, there are truths Meghan isn't ready to face. And until she does, the past will keep following her." The cryptic response sent shockwaves through the media. Headlines screamed, "Doria speaks out, Meghan's mother hints at dark family secret." Social media erupted, with users dissecting every word, every pause, every flicker of emotion on Doria's face. Back in Montecito, Meghan felt the walls closing in. She had counted on her mother's loyalty, believed Doria would never betray her. But now, it felt as if even her strongest ally had turned against her. How could she say that? Meghan screamed, tears streaming down her face as Harry tried to console her. "She knows what this will do to me, to us, to the kids." But Harry didn't respond. He stared at the floor, his jaw tight, his mind replaying Doria's words over and over. There are truths Meghan isn't ready to face. What truths? For years, Harry had defended Meghan against every attack, every accusation. But now, a sliver of doubt crept in, cold and unyielding. What if there was something Meghan hadn't told him? What if the family he had fought so hard to protect was built on a lie? Meanwhile, the world's attention shifted to the mysterious child at the heart of the scandal. Rumors swirled about their identity. Some speculated the child had been adopted by a distant relative and was living abroad. Others believed the child had been raised in secret, unaware of their mother's royal fame. A few conspiracy theorists even suggested the child had been hidden in plain sight, perhaps under a different name, shielded from the public by Meghan's carefully constructed narrative. As the days passed, a sense of inevitability hung in the air. If the child existed, it was only a matter of time before they were found. And when that moment came, Meghan's world would never be the same. Doria, for her part, seemed resigned to the storm she had unleashed. In private, she confided to a close friend, "I love Meghan. I always will. But love doesn't mean protecting her from the consequences of her choices." Her words, once private, soon found their way to the press, further fueling the fire. For Meghan, it felt like the ultimate betrayal. Her mother, the one person she had trusted implicitly, had joined forces with her estranged father to expose her most painful secret. And somewhere out there, beyond the flashing cameras and screaming headlines, a young adult stared at their phone, their heart pounding in their chest. For years, they had lived with questions about their origins, whispers of a mother who wasn't ready to raise them. Now, staring at Meghan's face on the screen, they felt the weight of possibility settle over them like a shroud. Could it be true? They whispered to themselves. Is she really my mother? The question hung heavy in the air, unanswered but impossible to ignore. If Meghan thought the worst was over, she was wrong. The storm was only beginning to gather strength. And this time, no amount of PR spin or royal protocol could save her from what was coming. The public had been whipped into a frenzy. The headlines had only grown bolder and more invasive with each passing hour. Meghan's firstborn exposed, hidden heir to the Sussex story. Where is Meghan's secret child now? But behind the viral hashtags and feverish speculation loomed the core mystery that had gripped the world. If Meghan Markle did in fact have a child in her early 20s, who were they? Where were they now? And why had Meghan allegedly gone to such lengths to keep their existence buried? The origins of the alleged pregnancy date back nearly 2 decades, to a time when Meghan was still years away from royal life, fame, or even mainstream recognition. She was a struggling actress in Los Angeles, bouncing between waitressing jobs, callback auditions, and a modest rental apartment in the Valley. She had dreams, big ones. And according to Thomas and Doria, Those dreams were powerful enough to override even the most primal instincts of motherhood. People who knew Meghan at the time describe her as fiercely independent, sharply ambitious, and at times, emotionally distant. She kept her personal struggles close to her chest. It was this secretiveness, perhaps, that allowed the alleged pregnancy to remain hidden for so long. In the cutthroat world of early 2000s Hollywood, a baby was not just an inconvenience. It was a death sentence for a young woman trying to climb the ladder in an industry obsessed with image. Details about the man believed to be the father are hazy, deliberately obscured by time, and perhaps by deliberate design. Some say he was a lighting technician on the set of a short-lived television drama. Others claim he was a part-time musician Meghan had dated briefly during one of her breaks from auditions. Whoever he was, he vanished from the narrative just as quickly as he entered. Sources claim he wasn't ready, either, and that Meghan made the decision alone. But that decision, to carry the child, give birth, and then surrender or hide the baby, is where the known details end and speculation begins. There are conflicting stories about what happened in the days and weeks after the birth. According to Thomas Markle's account, Meghan gave birth in a private clinic under an alias. He claimed he was present at the hospital, though his presence was deliberately minimized to avoid public record entanglements. He insists he held the baby in his arms, just once, before watching nurses wheel the infant away into another room, a room he says Meghan never entered again. Doria's version of events is quieter, more vague, but no less haunting. She describes comforting her daughter through a whirlwind of emotions, supporting her through a decision that broke both of us. She does not specify where the child went, but implies they were placed with someone trustworthy, someone who agreed to keep the matter confidential. Some suggest that Doria arranged a private adoption through a contact in the wellness and community service networks she was involved with at the time. But others believe the truth is even darker, that the child was never formally adopted at all, that they were instead given to a friend or family member and raised under a different name, told a story that only scratched the surface of who they really were. There are even rumors that the child was sent abroad, possibly to Canada or the UK, to avoid any risk of public recognition. The possibilities are endless. And for each one, a new question emerges. If the child is alive and well today, what have they been told? Do they know who their biological mother is? Have they grown up resenting the void in their life? Or have they lived in peaceful ignorance? Are they watching the news now, recognizing their own history in the whispers, the headlines, the faces on screen? The emotional toll of that question is perhaps the most harrowing of all. Imagine growing up in obscurity, while the woman who gave birth to you rises to become one of the most talked about figures in the world. Imagine watching her wedding to a prince, her sit-down with Oprah, her speeches on motherhood and mental health, all the while wondering if those words were ever meant for you. And what of Archie and Lilibet, the two children Meghan now presents as the center of her universe? If the older child were to come forward, what place would they have in the Sussex family? Would Meghan welcome them? Deny them? Or fight tooth and nail to keep them at a distance? Insiders suggest that Meghan has always been obsessed with maintaining control over her image, her narrative, her brand. Acknowledging a child she gave up or concealed would shatter that control into pieces. It would force her to relive a chapter of her life she has fought tirelessly to erase. And for someone who has built an entire platform on vulnerability, female empowerment, and maternal devotion, the contradiction would be devastating. It is this contradiction that lies at the heart of public curiosity. The world watched Meghan speak of suicidal thoughts and isolation during her time in the royal family. They watched her cradle her baby bump on magazine covers, speak passionately about the importance of protecting her children from media intrusion. And yet, if the claims from Thomas and Doria are true, the same woman once turned her back on a child who depended entirely on her for survival. This isn't merely a scandal, it's a question of identity, of legacy, of humanity. Some have come to Meghan's defense, arguing that a young woman's decision to give up a child, especially under emotional and financial duress, should not be weaponized against her. They argue that if she did indeed hide this chapter of her life, it was likely out of fear, not malice. That it was an act of desperation, not calculation. That motherhood, like every other part of life, is complicated and deeply personal. But others are less forgiving. To them, Meghan's potential dishonesty is not just personal. It's political. She used her position, they argue, to gain sympathy and moral authority. She painted herself as a victim of the institution, of the media, of racism, of betrayal. And now, the very foundation of that narrative is under threat. Even within royal circles, the whispers have started. Behind closed doors at Kensington and Clarence House, aides have begun re-examining Meghan's timelines. Hospital records, travel documents, statements given during interviews. If the hidden child is real, it would explain much of the unease many within the firm reportedly felt about Meghan from the start, a sense that she wasn't being fully honest about who she was or where she came from. And for Prince Harry, the stakes could not be higher. If he had no knowledge of this child, then his marriage is built on deception. If he did, and chose to help cover it up, then he is complicit in the betrayal of the public and his own family. But the biggest unknown, the most haunting possibility of all, is this. What if the child is watching right now? What if they have questions of their own? What if they want to be found? The media may speculate. The public may debate. But the person who holds the key to this story's ending is the one who has been silent from the beginning, the alleged firstborn, the child Meghan tried to forget. And if that person steps forward, the world will never be the same again. The city of Los Angeles in the early 2000s was a world unto itself, a sprawling labyrinth of dreams, desperation, and unrelenting competition. For Meghan Markle, it was a place where ambition met harsh reality, a testing ground where every audition was a make-or-break moment and every rejection a personal defeat. It was in this crucible that Meghan's young adulthood was forged, marked by long nights on set, early mornings waiting tables, and a relentless push to carve out a name for herself. Those who knew Meghan then recall a woman fiercely determined to escape the shadows of her upbringing. Raised by her mother Doria in Los Angeles, Meghan had always been acutely aware of the hurdles stacked against her, not least the weight of racial identity in Hollywood, where roles for women of color were scarce and stereotypes rife. She approached her career with a mix of poise and grit, balancing an enviable confidence with moments of self-doubt she rarely shared. But beneath that drive was a private struggle, one few were privy to at the time. Sources close to Meghan describe a period when her world was upended by an unexpected pregnancy, a secret she bore alone. The decision to keep it hidden, to shoulder the burden quietly, was driven by the fear that the revelation would not only stall her fledgling career, but also upend her entire future. During this turbulent time, Meghan reportedly leaned heavily on her mother Doria for support, even as the two navigated a complex web of emotions: hope, fear, shame, and love. Doria's unwavering presence was a lifeline, offering counsel and strength in moments of vulnerability. Yet, even this maternal bond was tested by the weight of the secret they guarded together. Friends from Meghan's acting circles recall subtle signs of strain: canceled plans, missed calls, a growing distance in her demeanor. It was as though Meghan was carrying a double life, the ambitious actress striving for recognition and the young woman grappling with a life-altering secret she dared not share. Industry insiders have since speculated that this secret may have influenced Meghan's choices during that period. The roles she accepted, the projects she pursued, even the image she crafted, all may have been shaped by the delicate balancing act of ambition and concealment. The pressures of Hollywood are notoriously brutal, and for a young woman with a hidden child, they could be crippling. Rumors abound that Meghan's pregnancy led to a temporary hiatus from auditions and public appearances. She was said to have withdrawn socially, focusing instead on private matters while plotting her next career move. Moreover, the alleged father's disappearance added another layer of complexity. Whether by choice or circumstance, he vanished, leaving Meghan to navigate the emotional and logistical challenges of her pregnancy largely alone. This absence deepened her resolve to keep the situation private, intensifying the cloak of secrecy. As Meghan's star slowly began to rise, culminating in her breakout role on the television series Suits, the past remained a shadow, always lurking at the edges of her carefully managed public persona. The birth of Archie and later Lilibet marked new chapters, ones that Meghan embraced openly and proudly. Yet, if Thomas and Doria's claims hold weight, these chapters were built on the erasure of an earlier, untold story. The emotional toll of living with this secret is profound. Psychologists suggest that individuals who conceal significant parts of their identity often struggle with chronic stress, anxiety, and a fragmented sense of self. For Meghan, these struggles may have manifested in the very public moments of vulnerability she shared during interviews, the accounts of loneliness, mental health battles, and the weight of public scrutiny. In many ways, Meghan's story reflects the broader complexities faced by women balancing career ambitions with motherhood, especially under the unforgiving gaze of fame. The tension between self-actualization and societal expectations, between privacy and public image, is a universal theme, made all the more intense by the spotlight she inhabits. But beyond the personal, the implications of these early struggles extend into the political and social spheres. Meghan's rise challenged long-standing norms within the royal family and the media. Her narrative of empowerment and resilience resonated with millions worldwide, making the potential revelation of a hidden child not just a family matter, but a story with cultural and symbolic significance. Was Meghan's decision to hide her first child a protective act, a way to safeguard her ambitions and later her family? Or was it a painful secret that, when uncovered, threatens to dismantle the image she has painstakingly constructed? As the world watches and waits, these questions linger, hanging over Meghan's story like a dark cloud. And as the next chapter unfolds, the intersection of past choices and present realities promises to reveal truths both shocking and deeply human. The emergence of the photographs and hospital records was like dropping a match into a powder keg. Overnight, what had been whispers and speculation transformed into a palpable, visual narrative, one that challenged the carefully maintained image of Meghan Markle's life. The images Thomas Markle and Doria Ragland brought forward were at once haunting and compelling. Faded snapshots from a hospital room, documents bearing the unmistakable official stamps of medical institutions, and intimate moments that suggested a reality far removed from the polished public persona Meghan had cultivated. The photographs were perhaps the most incendiary. One showed a young Meghan, eyes downcast, sitting on a hospital bed, her hands resting protectively over what appeared to be a swollen belly. Another, more striking image, featured her holding a tiny, swaddled infant, a child whose face was blurred but whose presence was undeniable. The expressions on Meghan's face in these images were raw: fear, exhaustion, love, and a sorrow that seemed to speak of secrets too heavy to bear. Alongside these images were pages of hospital records. These documents appeared to corroborate the existence of a delivery date that predated Archie's birth by nearly a decade. Names were redacted, but timelines and medical notes aligned disturbingly well with Thomas's claims. There were references to privacy requests, unusual patient admission protocols, and a delivery under a pseudonym, details that fueled the belief that Meghan went to extraordinary lengths to shield this child from public knowledge. The public reaction to the release of these materials was electric. News outlets scrambled to authenticate the documents, experts were called in to analyze their legitimacy, and social media platforms buzzed with debates, theories, and outright conspiracies. Some heralded the photographs as proof of a hidden truth long suppressed, while others questioned their provenance, suggesting they might be doctored or taken out of context. Inside Meghan's camp, the response was swift and uncompromising. Her legal team issued statements labeling the images and records as unauthorized leaks of private medical information and deliberate attempts to malign the Duchess's character. They accused Thomas and Doria of orchestrating a coordinated campaign to destabilize Meghan and Harry's family. But beyond legal battles and public posturing, the emotional impact of these revelations was profound. For Meghan, seeing these images, relics of her most vulnerable moments, splashed across tabloids and websites was a violation unlike any she had endured before. Sources close to her described a woman shattered, oscillating between fury and despair. There's a deep sense of betrayal, one insider shared. These aren't just photos, they're pieces of her soul. To have them weaponized like this, it's beyond anything she imagined. For Harry, the release complicated an already volatile situation. The images stirred old fears about media intrusion and mistrust. He faced the impossible task of protecting his wife and children from a storm that seemed to grow more relentless by the hour. Meanwhile, the images gave rise to a flood of questions. Who took the photographs? How did they come into Thomas and Doria's possession? Were there others who knew the truth? Could there be witnesses waiting to come forward? The hospital records deepened the mystery. They referenced a patient confidentiality agreement, unusual for standard births, and noted a special security detail during admission. Speculation grew that Meghan had been placed under an alias to avoid detection and that the hospital had complied to protect her privacy, a claim that, if true, suggested a level of planning and support behind the secrecy. Some experts pointed to the complexity of maintaining such a secret in the digital age. How could a birth be kept hidden when hospital systems are interconnected and records closely monitored? Theories emerged about private clinics, out-of-network facilities, and even underground adoptions, mechanisms designed to obscure sensitive information. Amid the maelstrom, a few voices urged caution. Medical privacy laws and the ethics of exposing such personal information were debated in forums and op-eds. Was it right to publicize intimate moments from someone's medical history? Did the public's right to know outweigh an individual's right to privacy? Yet, for the average observer, the impact was clear. These photographs and documents brought a tangible weight to Thomas and Doria's claims. They transformed rumor into reality, giving faces, dates, and names to a story that had until then existed mostly in shadows. In the end, the images and records did more than just confirm suspicions, they forced a reckoning. Meghan Markle's story was no longer just about a royal fairy tale or a modern woman breaking barriers. It was about secrecy, sacrifice, and the high cost of hidden truths. And as the world debated, Meghan and Harry were left to pick up the pieces, knowing that whatever came next, their family's private life had been forever altered. Meghan's world exploded the moment the photographs and hospital records hit the public domain. What started as a faint ripple of rumors quickly swelled into a tsunami of media scrutiny, social media vitriol, and public judgment. For a woman who had painstakingly built a brand rooted in resilience, authenticity, and maternal devotion, the assault felt deeply personal and attacked not just on her image but on the very essence of who she was. Behind the closed doors of her Montecito mansion, Meghan's fury was palpable. Those close to her described a woman transformed, usually composed and strategic, now visibly shaken and incandescent with rage. Her legal team, public relations experts, and closest confidants were summoned in rapid succession, their days consumed by crisis management, damage control, and counteroffensives. She's never felt this exposed, one insider revealed. The images, the records, it's like her past was ripped open and put on display for the world to dissect. And she's furious, not just at her father and mother, but at anyone who dared to believe the lies. Meghan's fight back was immediate and multifaceted. Her lawyers began by issuing cease and desist letters to media outlets publishing the leaked materials, demanding their removal and threatening legal action for breaches of privacy and defamation. Simultaneously, a carefully crafted statement was released, condemning the release of unauthorized personal information and reiterating Meghan's commitment to truth, transparency, and protecting her family. But beyond the legal front, Meghan engaged in a quieter, more emotional battle. Friends recount late-night conversations where she vented frustration, her voice breaking as she struggled to reconcile the public narrative with her private reality. She expressed fears not only for herself but for Harry and their children, terrified that the unfolding scandal would leave lasting scars. Meghan feels betrayed, said a close friend, not just by her parents, but by the world that seems ready to judge her without knowing the full story. She's determined to fight, to protect Archie and Lilibet, no matter what. Harry, too, played a crucial role in Meghan's defense. Sources describe him as fiercely protective, stepping into the fray with unyielding support and a readiness to confront the media on her behalf. Yet, beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of tension. The strain of the scandal took a toll on their relationship, introducing cracks in what many had believed to be an unshakable partnership. Legal experts speculate that Meghan's team was also exploring options beyond the courts, including strategic leaks to sympathetic media, controlled interviews to shift public perception, and diplomatic efforts to manage relations with the royal family. The objective was clear: regain control of the narrative before it spiraled further out of reach. Despite these efforts, the court of public opinion proved fickle. Social media became a battleground, with supporters rallying around Meghan's story of survival and detractors painting her as duplicitous and manipulative. Hashtags surged and waned, fan pages and hate accounts multiplied, and online forums buzzed with heated debates that mirrored the polarization of Meghan's image. Within this maelstrom, Meghan made a pivotal choice: to maintain silence on the specifics of the allegations. She declined to address the claims directly in public forums, preferring instead to let her legal actions and controlled messaging speak for her. This decision was met with mixed reactions. Some praised her restraint and dignity, while others interpreted it as evasiveness. Psychologists analyzing Meghan's public demeanor suggest this silence was a protective mechanism, a way to shield herself and her family from further emotional harm. It allowed her to conserve strength for the battles ahead, both legal and personal. Yet, not all was calm behind the scenes. Close confidants report that Meghan's mental health was severely impacted, with episodes of anxiety and depression resurfacing. The stress of the unfolding scandal resurrected memories of past trauma and public scrutiny, intensifying the pressure she faced. Harry's role shifted accordingly. He became a steadfast pillar, coordinating with security teams to ensure their family's safety and standing firm against intrusive media inquiries. Friends describe moments of quiet solidarity between the couple. Walks on their property, whispered conversations in the night, and shared determination to weather the storm together. But even as they united in defense, the scandal planted seeds of doubt and tension. Questions arose about trust and transparency within their marriage. Was there more Meghan was hiding? How long had she known about the secret child? And what might this mean for their future? As the fight back intensified, so too did the stakes. Meghan's public image, once a beacon of empowerment, now hung in precarious balance. The choices she made in these critical moments would define not only her legacy, but also the safety and happiness of the family she held most dear. In the end, Meghan's fight was about more than reputation. It was a battle for control over her story, her family, and her truth. And as the world watched, she vowed not to let anyone take that away from her. The news of Meghan's alleged secret past did not just ripple through the tabloids and social media, it crashed through the hallowed halls of Buckingham Palace like a tidal wave. Behind the ornate doors and velvet drapes, the royal family was gripped by a silent, suffocating panic that few outside their inner circle could comprehend. For decades, the monarchy had carefully managed its public image, crafting narratives of tradition, duty, and unity. Scandals were hushed, indiscretions discreetly handled, and any threat to the royal mystique swiftly contained. But the revelations about Meghan Markle, a duchess once celebrated as a modernizing force, threatened to shatter that fragile equilibrium. Inside the palace, senior advisors convened emergency meetings. The Queen, known for her stoicism and discretion, was said to be deeply troubled by the unfolding crisis. Courtiers whispered about the late-night strategy sessions aimed at damage control, assessing not only the truth behind the claims but also their potential to destabilize the institution itself. The question that haunted these gatherings was simple yet devastating. How much did the royal family know, and when? Some insiders suggested that certain members of the palace had been aware, at least in part, of Meghan's past struggles. Whispers of closed-door conversations between Meghan and senior royals, discreet inquiries into her background, and quiet warnings about the potential fallout circulated among staff. Yet, these remained unofficial, unconfirmed, fragments of a deeper story buried beneath layers of palace protocol. Prince Harry's role in this unfolding drama was particularly delicate. His marriage to Meghan had already strained relations within the family, and these new allegations only deepened existing fissures. While Harry had publicly defended Meghan time and again, behind closed doors there were reportedly moments of tension and confusion. Staff close to the couple hinted at whispered arguments, a palpable fear that Harry's loyalty was being tested in ways no one could have predicted. Moreover, the palace's legal teams reportedly began reviewing Meghan's prenuptial disclosures and background information with renewed scrutiny. If there were undisclosed facts or inconsistencies, they could have significant implications, not just for Harry and Meghan's standing, but for the royal family's reputation at large. The palace also found itself caught in a media trap. The global spotlight was merciless, with international press demanding statements, explanations, and reassurances. The traditional royal communication strategy, reserved, measured, and tightly controlled, felt inadequate against the virulent pace of social media and 24-hour news cycles. Behind the scenes, courtiers debated the merits of issuing a formal statement. Would acknowledging the allegations give them credibility? Or would silence be perceived as complicity or weakness? Each option carried risks that could inflame public opinion or embolden the opposition. Meanwhile, members of the royal family faced their own personal struggles. Reports surfaced of Prince William and Kate Middleton expressing frustration over the ongoing saga, concerned about the damage to the monarchy's image and the impact on their own public roles. The Queen's health, already a subject of concern, was said to be affected by the stress of managing yet another crisis. Yet, amid the turmoil, there were efforts to maintain unity. Advisors emphasized the importance of presenting a cohesive front, encouraging family members to avoid public comment and reinforcing the message of privacy and respect for personal matters. For Harry, caught between his duty to the crown and his devotion to Meghan, the situation was unbearable. The palace was no longer just a distant backdrop, it had become a battleground. Allies whispered about his increasing isolation, the emotional toll of being caught between loyalty to family and love for his wife. One royal insider confided, "Harry feels torn apart. He wants to protect Meghan and their children, but the weight of the family's expectations and scrutiny is crushing. He's never faced anything like this before." As the palace braced for what seemed an inevitable media onslaught, questions about Archie and Lilibet's place within the royal lineage gained renewed attention. The rumored hidden child scandal complicated existing narratives and fueled whispers about succession, legitimacy, and royal protocol. Amid the quiet panic, some within the palace reportedly feared that the story could be used as leverage by media outlets, political adversaries, or even by members of the royal family seeking to assert influence. The delicate balance of power was shifting, and with it, the monarchy's grip on its own narrative seemed to falter. Ultimately, the royal family faced a stark choice: confront the scandal head-on or risk watching their carefully crafted image unravel before their eyes. Either path promised hardship, but the stakes for the monarchy, for Harry and Meghan, and for the future of the crown had never been higher. The swirling storm of allegations about Meghan's secret past inevitably cast a shadow over the two children at the heart of her world, Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor and Lilibet Diana. To the public, these children symbolized hope and continuity, the innocent heirs of a modern royal family, shielded from the harshest gaze of the media. But in the wake of Thomas and Doria's claims, questions began to seep into even the most sacred corners of their existence. It started subtly. Royal watchers and conspiracy theorists alike noticed inconsistencies in official timelines, cryptic comments from anonymous sources, and gaps in public appearances. Online forums buzzed with debates about the legitimacy of Archie and Lilibet's birth certificates, speculation about surrogate mothers, and rumors that their births had been orchestrated in secrecy far beyond standard royal protocol. At first, these murmurs were dismissed as fringe conspiracy. Yet the explosive nature of the hidden child scandal lent them an air of credibility. If Meghan had managed to keep a previous child hidden from public view, why couldn't there be questions about the circumstances surrounding Archie and Lilibet's arrivals? Theories abounded. Some suggested that Archie was born via surrogacy, his birth intentionally concealed to protect privacy or political sensitivities. Others whispered that Lilibet's birth was surrounded by secrecy so deep it raised questions about her biological parentage. These speculations, while unproven, captured public imagination and complicated the Sussex family's efforts to control the narrative. Adding fuel to the fire were purported discrepancies in hospital records and the absence of clear photographic evidence from Archie and Lilibet's births. Unlike traditional royal births, which are often marked by public announcements, photographs, and media coverage, the Sussex children's arrivals had been shrouded in unusual discretion. To some, this was a sign of normalcy and privacy. To others, a calculated effort to obscure facts. The palace, aware of the growing chatter, tightened security around the children's whereabouts and reinforced messages about respecting their privacy. Yet the very act of heightened secrecy only amplified suspicion among the public and media. Social media became a battleground. Supporters of Meghan and Harry condemned what they called invasive and cruel speculation, targeting innocent children. Critics, meanwhile, argued that transparency was essential given the public roles their parents held. The debate sparked heated exchanges across platforms, polarizing opinion and deepening the fissures in public perception. Within this maelstrom, Meghan's protective instincts intensified. Sources describe her as fiercely vigilant, limiting public exposure of Archie and Lilibet, restricting interviews, and enforcing strict privacy measures. Friends recount moments where Meghan expressed deep anxiety over the impact of the scandal on her children's emotional well-being. Harry, too, stepped up, becoming a vocal advocate for privacy rights and responsible media coverage. His public statements emphasized the need to shield children from adult battles and to respect their right to a normal life. Yet the questions lingered, and the shadow cast by the hidden child revelations loomed large. Could the existence of an older, secret sibling disrupt Archie and Lilibet's place within the family? Would public perception shift to view the younger children as part of a carefully constructed facade? The potential ramifications extended beyond family dynamics into the realm of royal succession and public trust. If doubts about the children's legitimacy gain traction, it could destabilize the monarchy's carefully maintained image and raise uncomfortable questions about transparency and honesty within the institution. For the children themselves, the implications were deeply personal. Growing up under a global microscope was already a formidable challenge. Adding whispers of hidden siblings and questions about their own origins only increased the emotional complexity they would have to navigate. Psychologists specializing in children of high-profile figures warn of the psychological toll such controversies can exact. Feelings of confusion, anxiety, and identity struggles. Protecting Archie and Lilibet from these effects became a paramount concern for their parents. Amid all this, a poignant question remained unanswered. How did Meghan reconcile the alleged hidden child in her past with the public role of mother she so openly embraced? Was there an internal conflict between the mother she had been and the mother she presented to the world? The answer to that question may lie in the complex interplay of personal pain, public expectation, and the relentless pursuit of control over one's narrative. Meghan's story, with all its contradictions and shadows, revealed the fraught realities of living a double life, one foot in the private and one in the public, with no clear escape from either. As the story unfolded, it became clear that the fate of Archie and Lilibet was inexorably linked to the revelations about their family's past. Their innocence was caught in the crossfire of secrets, betrayals, and the unyielding hunger for truth. And as the world watched, the future of the Sussex children, and indeed the monarchy itself, hung in a precarious balance. Voices from Meghan Markle's past began to emerge, breaking the silence that had long cloaked her early years in mystery. Friends, acquaintances, and even former romantic partners started to speak out, offering glimpses, sometimes cryptic, sometimes candid, into the woman behind the headlines. Their words added new layers to the unfolding saga, painting a picture both complex and, at times, contradictory. One childhood friend, who asked to remain anonymous, described Meghan as ambitious but guarded, someone who rarely let people in completely. She was always chasing something bigger, this friend recalled. But there were moments when she seemed overwhelmed, like she was carrying a burden no one else could see. Another acquaintance from her acting days painted a portrait of a woman juggling the pressures of career and secrecy. Meghan was different from the others, said a fellow actor. She never talked about her personal life, and when she did, it was vague. Sometimes she'd cancel plans last minute, and you could tell something was going on beneath the surface. Perhaps most revealing were the comments from a former boyfriend, whose identity was protected for privacy reasons. He hinted at a relationship complicated by Meghan's unwillingness to reveal everything. She was fiercely private, especially about family stuff. There were times I felt like I was only seeing part of her. She guarded certain things closely, things she didn't want anyone to know. These testimonies, while fragmentary, hinted at a young woman grappling with internal conflicts, balancing the desire for connection with the need for discretion. They also raised questions about whether Meghan's past relationships had any bearing on the alleged secret child. Adding to the intrigue were comments from industry insiders who observed Meghan's sudden withdrawal from social circles during the early 2000s. Some speculated that this period coincided with the alleged pregnancy and subsequent birth, suggesting she had retreated to focus on personal matters away from the public eye. Journalists covering Hollywood also noted that Meghan had few close friends in the industry, often keeping her circle tight and guarded. This isolation may have contributed to the secrecy surrounding her early adult years. The revelation that Meghan's parents, Thomas and Doria, were now publicly supporting claims about a hidden child added weight to these testimonies. It suggested that those closest to her had knowledge of private struggles she had long tried to conceal. Yet, not all voices were willing to speak. Several friends and former partners declined to comment, citing loyalty, privacy, or legal concerns. Their silence only fueled speculation about what might be hidden beneath the surface. Experts in celebrity psychology suggest that Meghan's guardedness may have been a coping mechanism, a way to maintain control in an industry known for its invasiveness. The tension between public expectation and private reality is often fraught, especially for women navigating fame and personal trauma. Within this context, Meghan's story resonates with broader themes of secrecy, identity, and survival. The fragments of her past emerging through friends and exes provide a window into the challenges she faced, challenges that may have shaped the choices she made, including the alleged concealment of a child. For the public, These accounts offered both illumination and confusion. They humanized a figure often reduced to headlines, yet also deepened the mystery surrounding her life. As the scandal continued to unfold, the voices of those who once knew Meghan became crucial in shaping the narrative. Their perspectives added texture and depth, revealing the complexities of a woman caught between worlds, private and public, past and present, truth and secrecy. And in the midst of it all, Meghan remained a figure both scrutinized and misunderstood, her story still being written. The scandal unfolding around Meghan Markle's alleged hidden past not only strained public perception but began to erode the once solid foundation of her relationship with Prince Harry. For years, the couple had presented a united front, a partnership forged in love and shared defiance of the royal establishment. But beneath the surface, the relentless pressure was taking a toll, testing their bond in ways few outsiders could comprehend. Initially, Harry's response to the revelations was fierce and protective. He publicly stood by Meghan, dismissing the claims as baseless attacks from disgruntled family members and malicious media. Friends recalled his fiery denunciations of tabloids and critics, his unyielding support during their darkest moments. He was her rock, a close confidant said. No matter what came, Harry made it clear he was in it with her, no matter the cost. However, as the allegations grew more persistent and concrete, fueled by leaked photos, hospital documents, and mounting testimony, cracks began to show. Privately, Harry grappled with conflicting emotions, loyalty to his wife, frustration at the damage to their family's reputation, and a growing unease about the secrets she might still be keeping. Sources close to the couple described tense conversations behind closed doors. Late-night arguments about trust, transparency, and the future became more frequent. Harry reportedly questioned Meghan about the alleged child, the timelines, and her relationships before their marriage. Meghan, in turn, grew defensive, unwilling or unable to fully disclose the past she had fought so hard to keep hidden. These exchanges strained their intimacy and communication, creating emotional distance. Friends observed Harry becoming more withdrawn, wrestling with feelings of betrayal and confusion. Meanwhile, Meghan's frustration mounted, feeling misunderstood and under siege from all sides. The couple's public appearances began to reflect this tension subtly. What was once a warm, collaborative dynamic shifted to moments of visible stress, forced smiles, fleeting glances, and carefully choreographed interactions that seemed more performative than genuine. Royal insiders noted that Harry's unwavering public defense masked private doubts. Some speculated that he feared confronting the truth more than facing public criticism. Others believed his loyalty blinded him to potential warning signs. Compounding the strain was the impact on their children, Archie and Lilibet. Both Meghan and Harry expressed deep concern over the emotional toll the scandal was taking on their family unit. They debated how much to expose the children to the media firestorm and how to protect their innocence amid growing speculation. The pressure extended beyond personal spheres into their public roles and philanthropic work. The couple's initiatives, from mental health advocacy to social justice causes, were overshadowed by the scandal, challenging their ability to maintain credibility and influence. As the story evolved, observers noted subtle shifts in Harry's demeanor. Some interpreted his actions as signs of increasing frustration and disillusionment. Others saw a man caught between duty to his family and the harsh realities of their situation. Despite the challenges, Harry remained committed to Meghan. But the cracks in their united front raised questions about the long-term sustainability of their partnership under such relentless pressure. The emotional complexity of their relationship during this period reflects broader themes of trust, secrecy, and resilience. It underscores the human cost of living life under an unforgiving spotlight, where personal struggles become public spectacle. For Meghan and Harry, the choice was stark: confront the shadows of the past together or risk the fractures growing too wide to mend.